Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to create success even after tragedy? Well, we've got a great show for you. It's time to buckle up and wake up with the Inner Giant. Here we go. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I was mid gulp and it went live. I'm like, here we go. Getting a little bit of liquid courage back down the throat. My name is Ryan Morris, co-creator of Wake Up with Giants TV, a tribe of giants and 12 journeys coaching, and contributed in a book called Journey of Riches. It's all about kindness. It's living the paradigm of kindness, which is right up my alley. So if you want to check that out, that's on Amazon. And here with Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls, and the whole reason why we're on this podcast anyway. We'd have some weird name, I'm sure. We probably would have met anyway, but
yeah, got us into this mess, dude.
Got us all into this mess.
Now there's no going back.
Nope.
Yep.
You can't put the popcorn kernel back in the popcorn seed.
Right.
It's too late now. It's done popped. And he's written a host of other books. One is right behind his head. It's Tortoise's Hair as well. And we are almost done with the fulfillment of that book. It has taken us a while, but we are almost done. Not very many books left to fulfill.
I think
so we're
25 left.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Yeah. So we're just about there. It's been a long delay, but man, we're getting there.
Yeah, it's been exciting. It's a great journey. So learned a lot of lessons, and that's what we're here to do, is learn a lot of lessons and to help other people as they navigate their journey. In fact, we're right in the middle of our SG group, and then we're going to launch another one. Nick, do you have a time that we're going to get ready to launch the next SG?
I haven't chosen the date yet, but I think we're about 2-3 weeks out from finishing this current group. And we like to give ourselves a little buffer there, but likely August, SG 17 will be running, and killer program. Do you want to share a little bit of your version of that, Ryan? And then I'll show some of the resources that we've created.
Yeah, this will be our 17th cohort. We're just it's one of those things where when we started it out, we were probably a little bit more clunky, but we were on the right path. And I've been through it quite a few times, not every single time just because of time, but this time going around, Nick has added a bunch of extra stories that he's written about the journeys of Rit as he's going through, and they're beautiful, they're powerful, they show you a new perspective that you don't get inside the giants and the smalls, even though they're there. He's expounded on it, and we've created such a wonderful collection of science mixed with life experience, and you can really have a life-changing experience. I know this one has been very powerful for me. Very different than any of the other ones that I've gone through, and so it helps me. I've been through it a ton of times, and helped create it, and I keep finding new ways to grow and shift and adjust in my world. So
one of my favorite things for it is the portal that we've created for the Giants Trove, which is just stocked full of all of the resources you need for the program. And so we've put a bunch of resources there. We're using AI heavily through this program. So we have what are called notebook LMs. Each one of these dives into the 12 journeys individually and goes into the research and the science behind each journey. And the cool thing about Notebook LM is it does a mini podcast about the journey and the new stories. They're all preloaded into each of these. They're amazing. And so our goal with that is to have you see through metaphor and science things that are going to help you to grow. We have all kinds of books and journals. I'm working on getting this journal published right now. So just a few steps away from that. Every video that we've ever done is in there. And then our custom AI applications that are going to help you go to another level are built into that as well. But the most powerful thing is that AI can mimic coaches now. And so if you're not advancing with AI, it's going to take your position. And so one thing that we've done is that we incorporate AI into it. But the best part of this program is the group. Is you can't replace the dynamic of the group, of real contact, real interaction. And I learned that from Ankush Jain is you've got to be able to do the things that AI can't replicate. And that's what we're striving for in this program, is to really create a change in you through being in the trenches with you. So this is stuff Ryan and I have done to heal ourselves and continue to heal. So we go through this stuff too.
Yep, for
I
sure.
I might push back on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Though I do agree in the power of the community and being together and the dynamics that brings.
Yeah.
However, from my point of view, the best thing about this program is the hearts of the leaders that are running this thing, and the way that you're serving powerfully and leveraging all the tools, investing in with all the resources to really serve other people powerfully.
Oh, that's awesome.
That to me is what the best thing is.
I like that. Thank you.
Believe
Yeah.
it or not, that's not a paid endorsement.
It's not. I didn't
That
get
was
paid.
perfect.
And two things can be true at the same time.
That's right.
That's true.
That's right.
Oh,
Let's jump in, man.
I sure
Should we?
appreciate that, Eric. Thanks for those kind words. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I see. I just report what I observe. So
That's
Nice.
awesome.
All right, let's do it, Nick.
Let's do it. Let's introduce our guest.
Yep.
So today's conversation is going to go beyond business, beyond mindset, and straight into the heart of what it means to rebuild when everything falls apart. And I know people watching this, if you're like me, you've been through grief in some form, and this is going to serve you around that. So in 2019, Erik Thureson lost his 18-year-old son, Jacob, to an opioid overdose. But from that unimaginable pain, Erik didn't just survive, he transformed. His journey through grief has become a message of hope, healing, and purpose. He brings over 30 years of creative leadership from giants like Disney, the Oscars, and the NFL. But it's his intentional presence, his heart for people, and his courage to speak openly about mental health and substance abuse that truly sets him apart. From the jungle of El Salvador to the Nuremberg Ring, and now into this conversation, he's living proof that even in our darkest hours, there is light. So a massive welcome to Erik Thureson to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's truly an honor and a privilege to spend this time with you guys. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know this conversation is going to dive deep into, something we all experience, which is grief, and trying to navigate the loss of something, someone, and build our dream at the same time can be incredibly challenging. And I would like to start by your experience first, just to give context, and then navigate some of the philosophies and strategy of what we call the journey of grief. And the 12 journeys is how to navigate the weighty emotions and still grow. And so can you give us some context of your story and what happened with Jacob? And
yeah, I feel compelled to rewind a little bit further back. That was 2019. However, I think when I first became aware at my lack of awareness in the space of how I dealt with grief, was back in 2006. And 2005, my grandfather passed away. 2006, my grandmother passed away, and they were probably the most nearest and dearest people relationally that I had. I had gone through a series of losses prior to that, though these ones were the big ones. And what had happened was, and this and there's a psychological term for this where you have a significant delayed reaction. And so my grief wouldn't manifest until maybe 6 or 8 months later. And I went out to a happy hour with people from work. It was Taco Tuesday, and I proceeded to drink my grief into oblivion,
Mm.
and ended up, I don't even remember leaving the restaurant, and I woke up in the hospital. Um, and then I had some work to do. My youngest daughter was only 2 weeks old at that point, and and I'm asking myself, what am I doing with my life? I mean, I think I was, shoot, late 30s, 38, 39, somewhere in there at that point. And um it was just the awareness of, I'm destroying myself and I don't understand why.
Mm.
And so as part of the process, I had to go through alcohol school, and I went to a grief class that one of our good friends was a facilitator of. And there was an exercise in this class. And during this exercise, basically you do a timeline of as far back as you can remember when you were little to current time. And then just from memory, write a little tick line above the line for all the positive things that you can remember that's happened to you. And then you go back and you write a tick line on the bottom of the line of all the negative or traumatic things or losses that you can remember. And by doing this for the first time, I became aware of a pattern that had emerged. And it was about every 6 months or 8 months after some death or loss, I would go on this bender. Now, I wasn't an alcoholic in the traditional sense, though I was using that in the way to numb the grief that I was having.
Mm.
And I finally became aware of my ignorance in dealing with grief, and the patterns that were showing up in my life. And I'm extremely grateful for that exercise because of the awareness. And then I was able to do the work and change the behavior. So
Yeah. Okay. Let's create some foundation here with grief, because there are so many heavy emotions that come up with grief that people don't expect, and we all experience grief. Uh, Unless you're a sociopath, there might be this idea that you don't experience grief at all. But for most people, there's a level of going through these stages, and it's not necessarily linear. It's more of, you could have this, you could have a combination of these, and depending on the type of grief, they're going to show up. So if you look at Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she didn't solve anything when she described what people were experiencing, but the moment she gave language to it, people were like, oh, that's exactly what's going on for me.
right.
And that's what we do in the journeys, is we're not really teaching you anything new, but we're giving language to this process of growth. And grief is one of the most essential steps, because you're going to have ideals that fail. You're going to have relationships that fail. You're going to have people pass away in your life. There's just so many ways that we can experience grief. Can you give us a foundation of how you see grief and what that means to you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. After that experience, Judy became a grief counselor, a certified grief counselor from the oh shoot, Grief Recovery Institute was the organization that she got certified through.
Yeah.
And part of that training, grief is typically defined as uncommunicated uncommunicated things of an emotional nature.
Mm.
And there are things that, with that definition in mind, in that context, there were things that I wasn't able or didn't know how to communicate with my grandparents at the time. um, and I was just emotionally unintelligent. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
My emotional IQ was very low, and I didn't have a sense of awareness of these things, and I was just reacting. I was reacting to whatever would come up, and to me, outside the scope of that particular definition, the 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 grief was more in a sadness, and there's a loss or a sadness around that, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a loss as in someone passing.
Mm.
It could be a loss of a certain uh, pattern, like losing a job. I remember when um, I got laid off at Fox, because they went through and they basically let half the people go when they were reorganizing, and there was a sense of sadness because of the loss of the relationships.
Mm.
And I wasn't necessarily sad to lose the job. Actually, it was time for me to move on and go and grow and do other things, as I did at the NFL and other places. Um, but the grief of the loss of the community of the people that I worked with, that there was a pretty high degree of sadness around that. Um, and so for me, the grief is, yes, the definitions, but there's what's occurring inside.
Yeah.
What's occurring, um, whether it's sadness or depression, or the things that the thoughts that I'm having and stories that I'm creating around whatever's occurring, um, makes me feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Let's go into that a little bit. So Andrew Huberman talks about what's needed, what elements are needed for grief to occur. Because we don't grieve everything every day. It would be too much. You know, there are
Right.
people dying every day, jobs lost every day, but we're not
Mhm.
attached to those. So one of the key
Right.
elements of grief is there has to be an attachment, a
Yeah.
bond in some form. And it's a mental bond. It's not a physical, tangible thing, but your brain has wired you to expect that in your environment, and you're okay with it. And then the
Yeah.
second thing is time, or time, and then space is the third thing. So time meaning that you can access it within your time frame, within your lifetime, right?
Mhm.
Or a reasonable amount of time. And space is it's accessible in some form. And social media gives us accessibility over large distances, but we have loss of friendships online of people we've never even met, you
Mhm.
know, and we feel the grief from that. So without those three elements, it's hard for people to experience grief, because if you never attach to somebody, you're not going to be sad if they pass away.
Right.
That's not heartless. It's just the human design is that you're not going to have a connection to that person.
Right.
So it'll feel distance, right? So can that occur, like you said, with a job, a relationship, with an ideal, a dream or vision that's not going the way you want, or you're doing something you think it will go a certain way and it doesn't, so you have a failure? Could you grieve a failure? Can
Sure.
you throw some spin on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, it can show up in a lot of different facets. I mean, I don't know why this is coming up, but I was a pretty well decorated wrestler in high school. I wrestled all the way through college as well. Um, and in high school, one of the big tournaments in California is the regional tournaments, the
Mm.
CIF tournaments, and the first year that I was in that tournament, I essentially nearly beat the state champion that had been state champion the previous 2 years, and I didn't know who he was. I wasn't really clued into all who was doing what and all of the data and details behind all that. I just showed up and did the best I could, and then see what happens.
Hmm.
Um, Fast forward 2 years, so my junior year, I make it to the finals and lose, and so my senior year, the expectation is that I win the whole thing, and I make it to the finals and I lose,
Mm.
and I was extremely disappointed and depressed and grieving that loss. And I really blamed myself for getting in my head and all the things that unfolded. And then a number of and then that's just the main Southern California region, and then you go on to the state, and there's one more tournament before the state tournament, and there's people that I've beaten before that I had lost to just because I was in that state of grief, and didn't make it to state. And all the other guys in the college team were state champions or state runner-ups or this or that, and I always felt less than, even though if you had looked at my actual physical record, my physical record was better than most. And I say all that to say that the expectations that I had put on myself because of what had occurred prior, and getting in my thoughts and getting all attached to a specific outcome, and then when that outcome didn't happen, it really set me in a bad space emotionally.
Yeah, this is a great example. It also brings to mind that we sometimes grieve things even though they haven't even happened yet. So we start mourning the loss, and it hasn't even, we haven't even lost yet, and so we
Right.
start experiencing what that might feel like. I mean, the brain is a prediction machine, and so it's constantly looking at the environment and making suggestions to you of what it thinks is going to happen. The challenge of grief is that when there's a separation of something and the shattering, Susan Anderson talks about this, the shattering of your world, you what you used to go down as a pathway is no longer accessible. You can't access the person, you can't access the experiences that you had. They're just shut off suddenly, and the brain's reeling, going, what the hell did you just do to me? And so one of the things that I've seen in my own experience of grief is that I tend to withdraw. I'm like, I don't want to be around people right now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be by myself. I want to kind of sit with this and internalize it. So internalization is a part. And then what's interesting to me is the amount of rage and anger that comes up. And people don't talk about this a lot. People say, anger is bad. You shouldn't have anger. But there's a thing that happens with anger. It's almost like cauterizing the wound. It's almost like, I wrote a post the other day about forging the metal, that if the anger is too hot, if the fire is too hot, it's going to burn up the metal and all the impurities plus the metal and make the metal brittle. If there's not enough anger or not enough forging, the metal is going to be weak and flexible, right?
Yeah.
And so in our grief stages, and maybe you can speak from your experience with Jacob's loss, is you guys had all these tools, and then you go through that experience again. And rage is one of those things that doesn't get talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And did you experience any, or were you just easy kill all the way through? Like no frustrations, no anger? Can you speak about that for a minute?
Yes, absolutely. I think that is definitely one of the normal responses. And however, in the case of Jacob, so Jacob had been admitted to the ER a number of times before this last time, 6 years ago. And there were times where I was angry at that point. Angry at him making poor decisions. I was there was moments where I was angry at Judy, and none of that was helpful in the moment. However, what's interesting about the final time, so when he was admitted to the ICU, on June 13th, 2019. The first 3 days, I was very attached to the outcome of him walking out of there, or at least coming out of there, on a journey of recovery. Though I wrestled with God the first few days, and I had the awareness of knowing that I needed to let go of the outcome so I could be fully present.
Mm.
And there were people around me after he had passed that were angry. I don't recall if Judy was angry at all. However, anger wasn't one of the emotions that particularly that came up for me in that example.
Mm.
I had the awareness of, oh, I absolutely cannot pick up a drink right now.
Mm.
If I did that, I would not come back from that. There is a deep sense of sorrow and sadness. Um, the anger phase never hit me though.
Mm.
And I think part of the reason is this.
Yeah.
The last day that he was with us, the last evening, we've after being in there for 2 weeks, or a few days, we realized we needed to take moments out of the hospital, go get food, go rest. We couldn't be in there 24/7 because it wasn't good for us mentally, emotionally, and physically. Um, and so we went out to go eat. Now everybody had left the room, and as we were walking towards the elevators, I realized, oh shoot, I forgot my glasses. I'm not gonna be able to read the menu. So I walked back into the room, and it's just me and Jacob. And I grab my glasses,
Mm.
and I have this moment with him. And I grab his hand, and I lean over, and I whisper into his ear. I said, I forgive you. I love you. And if it's your time, if you want to go, it's okay.
Mm.
You can go. And then I walked out of the room, and I felt this sense of completion. Like,
Mm.
it was probably one of the handful of times that just he and I were together in the room, because there's always something, a nurse coming in, or different people that we're visiting. And um
As a parent, like that would be like the thing that I'd be fighting the most
exactly.
to not say, because I have twin 13-year-old boys, and I was picturing, God, I'm getting emotional just like thinking, like putting myself in that position of like knowing that that's probably what needs to happen and what needs to be said, but not wanting to say that.
Yeah, it wasn't what I had planned to do when I walked back in that room. I just planned to pick up my glasses
Mm.
and walk out. However, I also was of the strong belief that he could hear everything that was going on. And after the first 3 days, and I really was able to get surrendered and have this peace that transcended all understanding, I was able to be fully present and engage with people, and share with him what was occurring, as if he could hear everything,
Mm.
just not see what was going on. And like share, like let him know who was coming in the room and different things, and just actually being 100% fully present. um and in that moment, that was what it had occurred to me, was that, shoot, he might be feeling, he might have this sense of guilt or shame, of why we're here, and feeling responsible for all this sorrow, um, and I just, something in me, something in my heart and in my soul just said to let him know that it's okay,
Yeah.
and that I forgive him, that there's no judgment, there's no ill will, uh, and
Do you
and
think,
I
Eric, and not to interrupt too much, because hold your thought, but do you think there in that moment too, there might have been a little bit of forgiving yourself
mm,
as well?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Uh, I might not have framed it that way in the moment, but that is absolutely, um, it wasn't just for him.
Can you give us a definition of forgiveness? What is that for you?
Um, whew, yeah, I think, well, in this particular context, it was, um, so for me, in the definition of forgiveness
Yeah.
is really releasing any responsibility, or um releasing any bitterness. It's for the person that's doing the forgiving,
Mm,
not more, in my opinion, more than for the person that needs to be forgiven, or
beautiful.
is the receiver of the forgiveness.
It's a release, a letting go
Yes,
of whatever you think you need to hold on to about that person, that experience.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I have
Can I
another.
throw? Yeah, hang that. So let's pull that in. And this definition that I heard, I absolutely love, is to not cause additional harm.
Mm, mm, yeah, that's powerful.
Can you
That's,
pull in the thought you just had there too?
yeah, and I think the additional harm in that regard was the harm to myself and to
Mm,
others, holding on to some form of anger and bitterness towards him for being in this situation,
yeah, yeah.
as well as blaming myself, um
Mm,
and there was there there was a bunch of media after he had passed, and there was a lot of people online that were totally shaming us, saying, "Wow, look at his behavior, look at his socials. The parents weren't this, the parents weren't that." And I'm grateful that
mm,
I had the awareness to go, he never, this guy that posted this video that totally berates us, and he was a parent and he was angry, um, and in his anger created this piece of content, and I realized, he doesn't know us. He doesn't know what we did or what we didn't
yeah.
do. He didn't ask. And I felt a sense of peace, because in my mind I went back, I'm like, did we do everything possible that we could have? And I'm like, we went to counseling, we went to psychiatrists, we went to psychologists, we went to inpatient program, outpatient program, we went to counselor. Like, we turned over every rock possible when we discovered that he had a mental health condition. And
Mm,
when he got diagnosed, and he was being medically supervised with medication, and then that didn't work, and he got frustrated, and he was self-medicating. So there was all
mm,
of this that was going on, and I didn't doubt that I did everything I possibly could. So I'm grateful for that test,
mm.
and that moment of forgiveness, which Ryan so eloquently drew awareness to, is that it was also that for me. It was,
Yeah.
I'm not blaming myself for us being here.
There's
Here's,
yep.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got this thought here. It's going to be a Christian view here. Is Christ is on the cross and he says, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And
Right.
there's an element of that here of, there are people that are making comments and suggestions that don't have the full picture. And part of you can feel really frustrated with that. It's like, you don't even know what you're talking about. But, the idea of forgiveness is, I'm going to release that. I'm going to let go of that. I'm not going to cause additional harm with that, because truthfully, you don't even know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And the additional harm in a place of a lack of forgiveness, the greatest degree of additional harm is to the self.
Yeah. Okay.
The bitterness that I could have held on to, blaming myself, or the bitterness,
Justifiably, right?
or the bitterness that I could have held on to, like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, blah, blah, and just
Right.
and being bitter and angry at I could very easily be bitter and angry at the world.
Yeah.
I choose not to. Here's another example that somebody I shared with recently said I need to share this more. The kid that sold Jacob the drugs called me like a few days after he passed. And I didn't recognize the number. I answered the phone, and he's bawling on the other end. Absolutely just distraught, having a difficulty getting words out, just blaming himself. He says it's my fault, and he's ready for me to unleash on him. He's ready for me to persecute him or press charges or what have you.
So he's on guard, which a lot of us do, right?
And he's in this sense of absolute just self-loathing and grief, and blaming himself for what had occurred. And I asked him, I said, did you hold a gun to Jacob's head and make him take those drugs? And he said, no. I said, he would have gotten them from somewhere else. I said, I don't hold you responsible, and I forgive you. Now, this is 3-4 days after Jacob passed, and I'm on the phone with him, and I'm just being fully present. And I said to him, I said, there isn't anything that I can say that can take away the grief and the guilt that you're feeling. However, I do not hold you responsible, and I forgive you. And if you need help getting out of this environment, if you need help getting sober, if you need help getting into a healthier place, I'm here for you. Let me know how I can support you.
I want to create a distinction with that. Okay. The difference and the distinction between grief and mourning. There's the story. One of the top researchers on grief talks about the buffalo and the cattle. That many people are like the cattle, that when the storm comes,
they run
away from it, right? And they numb out, or they use drugs or alcohol or distractions, and they don't re-engage. They keep running from the storm, which prolongs the storm.
Right.
Whereas the buffalo will turn and face it.
They charge into it.
Because then the storm is shorter, because they still feel the impact, but they go through it faster. And mourning is more of that conscious, voluntary, courageous action to choose into a new way of being, or a more powerful way of being, even in the presence of the storm, right? Whereas grief is more of the experience. It's more of what your body does when there's a loss, how your mind reacts, how your emotions and sensations start going, what sensations you might feel, what emotions you might feel, like denial and anger and bargaining and depression. Those are all part of grieving. The withdrawal, the internalization. You did that. And I almost want to switch the word anger to forge. You forged in each of those experiences who you wanted to be. You anchored it in even harder. is I will not be the guy that punishes this man that did a post. I am not going to be the guy that punishes this kid that sold my son the drugs. That's not who I'm going to be. And people could justifiably do the opposite with justification, and people would look at it and say, you're totally in your right to do that.
Absolutely.
Right. And forge that in. Right. So can you speak about mourning, that powerful distinction of I'm going to deliberately move in a direction, even though I'm afraid, I'm feeling all the feels, I have a real loss here. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, and I still feel that. There's the right or wrong song will come on, and I'll be an absolute mess. There are times, like the obvious is mourning the loss of my son, right? That's obvious. What's not obvious that's occurred to me in the days and months and years that have passed is mourning the loss of the things that will never happen.
Oh man. Holy crap.
Watching him walk down the aisle getting married will never happen. And seeing him have the same experience when his firstborn is born, when the nurse handed him to me, he'll never get to experience that feeling. And there's many things that will not occur at this point because of his transition, that I mourn, that I sometimes I'm not even thinking about what I don't know, and then I have an awareness of it, and this mourning will and the sadness will come up again.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I think part of mourning is realizing it's okay to not be okay. And it's essential not to stay there. For me, that's been an essential realization to go, hey, there's times where I can be an absolute mess and sad and bawling and not feeling well, and not judge myself because of that.
Yeah.
It'd be easy to stay in that grief, in that cycle. What I was thinking of is, in the title of this show is creating the success after the tragedy, and knowing the things that you've been through and what went on and how you moved through those things. Can you now build a bridge, or from not getting stuck in that, and it's okay to feel it, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what we want you to do. That's what the body's telling you to feel it all.
Right.
But then taking, and there's people in here, Hugh Jacobson's one, where drinking actually probably saved his life. He numbed out so that he didn't take his life.
Right. Yeah.
But then now drinking all the time, that just masking up the bigger problem or the bigger issues. So how do you then shift through? And I hear you, Hugh. Hugh lost his daughter in a car accident from drunk driver.
Yeah.
And but now, how do you then make that shift?
The irony in that situation where he's now drinking to numb out.
For sure.
Right. And drink, and that's a longer form of self-harm. You're still killing yourself. It's just you're not doing it all at once. And for me, I was doing that when I was 18 years old. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of emotional intelligence, and there wasn't a lot of love in the household that I grew up in. There's very little. that wasn't spoken in my household. There wasn't any affection in my household. So when I got affection from a girlfriend, um, that was like, oh, this is how love feels. And then when that relationship ended, I ended. I was now I wouldn't have said I was trying to kill myself, but if you looked at my behavior, I was self-destructing.
Mm.
And I was absolutely trying to kill myself. It just wasn't all at once.
Yeah.
And I, th- yeah, I think mm, there's a number of things that I've shared about the timeline and awareness,
Mhm.
becoming aware of how I process grief in this one phase. So there was a growth. I grew from that awareness. I knew what I would not do and lines I would not cross after
Mm.
Jacob passed, because I knew that that degree of loss was even greater, and I
Who
wouldn't.
was in there? Who was involved in helping you see some of these things and to move through and to be there as a support and a guide?
Well, my wife, number one, my wife,
The Judy Thureson?
Judy Thurston, what the angelic being that God put in my life, and has been by my side through all of it. Her love, her compassion, her grace. She's a magical being, and the commitment to doing the work. I think that's another part of it. Having these realizations.
So
There's
you yourself, even you take out every other third party, you were your own giant as well, and had to then pull yourself through and lift yourself up and guide yourself through these times. It was always in there.
Sure, absolutely. The strength and the courage and the awareness God gives us in our and I'm a spiritual guy. I believe in God. I believe in Christ, and I believe that God gives us a spirit that um, that everything that we need to get through this life in a powerful way to serve others. Um, to be able to go through something like this and have success and to pinpoint one thing, it's I'll say it this way: there isn't one thing; it's everything, and it's nothing.
Mm.
I had a choice. I have a choice, and I choose to believe things that I've heard from God. God said to me in the process of wrestling with him to get to a point where I was able to be present outside the scope of attachment to a specific outcome, was steward your suffering well.
Mm.
And to me, at the moment, I didn't know how to define that, though I've come to define that as leaning into the difficult and uncomfortable to serve other people. And by doing so, it makes a difference. And 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 in the scope of going through grief and then being able to come out of the other side and grow, and not just exist, but actually live and thrive, that's a choice. That is an absolute choice. My my wife has gone through some of the most horrific things that you can possibly imagine, in addition to losing our son.
Mm.
um and she's shared this publicly. She was kidnapped by a serial killer, and she was kidnapped by a serial rapist, and thankfully she escaped from the serial killer. though, in the case of the rapist, the police didn't get there before what had occurred. And the degree of of growth that she's had is remarkable. And in psychology, there's a term that they use, is we've heard of um, you know PTSD, right? Post traumatic stress disorder. Well, there's another side to that, which is post traumatic growth. And it's a very rare thing that happens. But that's something that she definitely has, because through these most dark and traumatic experiences that have happened for her, she's had this remarkable amount of growth. She might even be a better person to talk to than me on this. However, again, it's a decision, it's a choice, it's a choice. She had a choice in real time, in the moment, right after the rape had occurred, and the guy had thrown her in the bathroom, and then the cops are banging on the door as he's raping her friend at the same time. She comes out in a state of forgiveness and forgives him right after it happened. Like, who does that?
Hmm.
And it was a choice. She had a very spiritual experience that occurred there, and the choice for us is what does stewarding our suffering look like? It looks like serving others. It looks like sharing that and reliving that as many times as necessary, because perhaps in doing so, it serves and saves some.
There's something to be said to that, right? The idea of telling the same story uh, over and over to different audiences. Musicians have known this for years. I look at U2, one of the greatest bands. Somebody's going to disagree with me, but they sing the same songs over and over, and it doesn't get old. Let's see.
Joshua, I know it's hard to see because of all the chain
that's
around it, but
awesome.
there's a Joshua tree right in there.
That is awesome.
So it's funny you bring that up, because
go.
That concert, December 20th and 21st, 1987, was the concert that sparked hope. And that relationship that I mentioned earlier, where I was self-destructing,
Wow.
I was completely apathetic about life, and there was something in the music, there was something in the air, where there was just a spark of hope that there was something worth living for. Now, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who God was. I wasn't religious growing up. And that little spark of hope put me on a different trajectory.
That's interesting. Like, we always say the X, like, you are the X, you're the X on the map where you're going, you're the X on time, you're the equation, you're the missing element, you're everything. The X is everything. And it's you. And so, these little things, you get these nudges to share things. U2 came to mind, and here you are. That was an impactful thing, right? It's like, the following intuition is where I'm at right now, is following what my gut is telling me. And it's so hard because there's impact. When I make a decision over here, there can be real impact out there. And
Absolutely.
To be a steward over things is, I don't want to cause additional harm to people. It's already hard enough. It already hurts enough. I don't need to add anything on top of that. Right. And I want to hang here for just a minute. We're going to go a little bit long here today, if you're okay.
Absolutely.
The idea of stepping into success, the choice to step into growth, it isn't a decision. The word decision means to cut off. So when we cut off the old pathways, grief is kind of a forced cutting off. It's like, maybe you chose into it, maybe you didn't. Either way, there's a cutting off of what used to be, the pathways you used to go down. And so when you do that, then now it's a decision and a choice. And now it's choice, really. is now that you've cut off, now what are you going to do with the new pathways? Because on every, and this will go a little scientific here, every neuron has a certain length. The longest in the body goes from head to toe. And so at some point, though, that neuron ends before another one begins. And they all fire all or nothing. There's no like, oh, you stop halfway through and you're like, I'm going to go back on that one. It's no, you fire all or nothing, but you have a choice at the next gap of where you're going to go with it. The tendency is to go down the same old pathways, to choose the same steps that you've always taken because they're familiar or they're accessible or easy. For some people, it's when I get to that decision point, I'm going to numb out. I'm going to distract and not do anything and just let life happen.
Yeah.
And so when you get to that point of your life isn't dictated, it's not predetermined. It's now that you're going through this experience and it's having the impact it does. Where do you want to go from there? And it's all made up. I mean, can you play with that a little bit? Does that bring up some ideas for you?
Yeah. I think yes. And I love that you mentioned intuition and really following that. The obedience to the intuition that comes from within is a magic that's where the magic happens. That there are some miraculous things that occur in that space, and we don't have an intellectual understanding. It's not like, oh, x plus y equals z, or it's not a formula per se. And there's a spark, that spark of hope that I mentioned earlier in each of us. And when we're leaning into that intuition and we're leaning into, this might feel really uncomfortable, this is this isn't what I would decide, like it goes against, and we're wrestling with it. And if we just step into it, in the discomfort, in the unknowing, in the uncertainty, that spark of hope changes lives. That spark of hope will set others on a trajectory that is healthier and is the best version of themselves. And then they in turn are able to do that for others. They in turn make choices that spark hope, and they might not have all the answers, and that's okay.
Right? The as within, so without. Like it's like our inner world, it directly mirrors our outer world. It's
100%
exactly what you're describing here. Oh man. I don't know that it had anything.
And I don't know if that answered the question or not. I just
no, it totally did.
Yeah.
Because we all have an impact and a ripple. And my goal is to impact people in a positive way. And there are sometimes that you have to, you don't have to, you don't have to do anything. You make a decision that has an impact on somebody else. Right. And I'm experiencing that recently. And it's like, this is hard. Right. And then it's already hard. We don't have to make it harder. I don't have to go over there and be like, I'm going to make you miserable because of my decision over here. Right. So I get to choose, do I slow down with who do I want to be in this world? How do I want to step forward from this experience? Or do I react to it, which is what a lot of us tend to do. I love the cliche of reaction and creation are the same letters. They're just arranged differently. It's how you choose to put it together. And when you're looking at an impactful event in your life, some days it's hard to get out of bed. Some days all I can do is get one thing done today, and you would think if you're the one that made the decision that you should be fine. And it's like, hell no, I'm not fine. I'm feeling all of it. And some days I can only get one thing done, and it's messy and it's muddy and it's hard. But I internally feel like, you make that decision, or that decision's made for you. In your case, you always have a choice of what you do next. right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How important is that, Erik?
Yeah. Why what's coming up for me as you share that, it goes back to the beginning
Yeah.
when you were kicking off this podcast and you were talking about the greatest thing is the community.
Mm,
And you did a very amazing job just eloquently describing the struggle, the internal angst, and what we go through, and ultimately it is our responsibility to make that choice of how we're going to show up.
yeah.
However, it's also important who you're surrounding yourself with.
Yeah.
I think because of the community that you've created here and the way that you show up here, it gives people a safe space to be authentic and to bring those things that vulnerably could feel like, oh, I'm not sharing this, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
But you creating a space that isn't judgmental, it's not shaming, it's not
Mm,
none of those things. It's that is also a massive part of it. And you're creating that. You're creating that hope by creating a safe space for people to be authentically themselves.
it's hard because, okay, I shared a post the other day about sondering. My son asked me the question. He goes, "Do you know what sondering is, Dad?" And I'm like, "Nope, never heard of it." And he
Yeah.
goes, "It's the idea that every human you see has a journey and a life experience and story that's as unique and as in depth as yours, as complex as yours."
Mm-hmm.
And when you really slow down with that, it's easy to project and transfer your experience on others as though they should know the way you know things, or they should act a way that would be in line with yours, or you don't even give thought that they're another human with a complex story.
Right.
And what sondering does is it gets you to slow down with that person that you're interacting with is a human just like you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're feeling the emotions like you're feeling the emotions. They have their stories and their traumas and wounds, just like you have your stories, traumas, and wounds. It gets me
Mm-hmm.
emotional thinking about that. And like that boy that, that sold the drugs, you're slowed down enough to see the humanity of that kid, to
Right.
not put additional harm on him over an already difficult experience, right? The humanity that it takes to really just see somebody and say, look, I love you. I'm not going to put any more hurt on you. This is already hard enough for everybody.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That takes slowing down and recognizing that everybody you interact with is a human going through a unique journey, just like yours.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful, Erik.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to describe it. And having that awareness keeps us from shooting on ourselves.
Mm,
It
yeah.
keeps us from the shoulds and the woulds and the coulds and all of that, and allows us to be fully present with one another. I
Mm,
th- I think as we learn how to be fully present in the moment, what's occurring, without judgment, without prejudice, and uh, magical things can happen,
mm,
and not can, they will. And miraculous things are happening all the time, yet it's what do we choose to see?
mm.
And
Dude, there's a Byron Katie quote. I want to throw it in here. Okay.
yeah.
Because she says, as long as you think the problem's out there, as long as you think that the issue is outside of you, there's no hope. You'll forever be the victim. You'll be suffering in
Mm,
paradise.
mm-hmm,
And what you just hit on right there is that paradise never changes. The
mm-hmm,
only thing that changes is our perception in relation to paradise.
mm-hmm,
And so that releasing judgment, releasing the frustrations and the angers and the what should be in the world. And the word should means to owe a debt. I don't know if you knew
Right.
that.
Right.
It's to owe a debt, but it's to some ideal. Like you owe a debt to some ideal, that the way to forgive that debt is to change the ideal.
Right.
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 So there's all this idea of you're going to step in a new pathway. So to get present, and what most people do is they get into what's called the remembered present. So they bring their whole past forward into the present moment and then predict from there.
Right.
To get fully present is to be aware that that's happening, but to not let it drive the bus, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's many other stories of what occurred in the ICU after I was able to get present. Serving the nurses. We were serving the nurses. The nurses in the ICU. Who does that? Do you know what happens in the ICU most of the time? The families and the people that are hurting take it out on the nurses and the medical staff, which is why a lot of them have compassion fatigue, because they're like, shoot, I'm in here doing the best I can, taking care of your loved one, and you're just giving me a bunch of grief.
Yeah.
And we were, sir, I was getting them coffee and lunch, and that's not to say there's something special about me. It was, I chose to get present. I wrestled to get there. And then once I was there, I was able to observe what was going on and seeing other people's needs beyond my own in that moment. We would pray and share food with other families that were in the lobby, because they had a loved one in a room just like Jacob's. And we created a community in that lobby, a community of love and kindness and courage and support, because we knew it wasn't just us, though we had more people in there because of, Jacob being a public figure to some degree. And
we just wanted to highlight this over and over again, because that's all I could think about was when you said there's nothing special about, not to say there's nothing special about me. There absolutely is. This is who you are as people, and I'm including your wife and your family in this. Is 100%. This is your view, and this is how you were choosing to live your life, because you had a choice, and so then you made decisions. This is how we're going to handle this. This is what we're going to do. This is who we're going to be in this moment, and that absolutely um, speaks volumes of who you are. And if I can, for just 2 seconds, this is how I know who these people are. And Nick knows, because Nick was there. We were traveling to go to Birmingham last year, and we had a hard day. We couldn't get there. We thought we had this ideal of, we're going to get to Birmingham the night before. We're going to surprise everybody at the dinner. We're going to do this, this, and this. And God had a different path for us to go down, and that was to learn some lessons. And we got delayed at the airport. They started to tell us that, oh, hey, and you're not going to be able to go until the next day, so and you'll probably miss your first, your first speaking and all this stuff. And we kind of went into panic mode for a little bit, and then we started to let go. But this was my face. I know it's probably a little bit hard to see. I was not in the best of moods, trying to joke around and kid, but my anxiety level was through the roof. And as I'm sitting there, and I'm going to hit play on this, you're not going to be hear volume, but we're sitting in the airport, and I'm
In
freaking out
Ireland,
in
right?
Ireland, and right behind us walks up Judy and Erik Thureson, and in my life, couldn't have happened at a better time. Was this like a crazy heavy? There was no death involved. There wasn't a lot, like, as far as that was concerned. I was going through some things in my world, uh, wondering if God cared. uh, and then on some island in halfway around the world, in an airport, comes two of the most selfless serving people that I know, that believe in us.
Mm.
And it was absolutely perfect. You have no idea what that meant, Eric. I mean, maybe my emotions can convey some of that,
Mm.
but to see you guys there, uh, there was nobody else that was meant to come at that point in time in my world, and it was everything. And that's because God puts people and experiences in your path. Um, and we were right on time, and we preach it. We kind of, at least for me, I didn't even know it. Nick probably was fine. He's always a rock, and but in my
No,
I was
I'm not. No, I'm not. Yeah.
he's my rock. But I just want you to know how appreciative we were, and that came because of who you are. That came because of your experiences that you've been through. That came because every decision in your life led up to the intersection of every decision in my life.
Mm. Mm.
And we met at that intersection. And we shared a cab and hugs and laughs and smiles and a
Mhm.
beautiful weekend. And I will never forget that ever
Mm.
in my life
Yeah.
because of the impact that it had. So you're not just somebody, Eric. Somebody special. You were very special in my world. So you and your
Mm.
wife. So thank you.
Are you saying I went to school on a little yellow bus?
Maybe, and I'm grateful for that bus.
Yeah, yeah.
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 It was such a joy to see, like, the joy that you gave to us, both of you, when we saw each other. That was the beginning of really the magic of
Mm.
of being there. Um and Nick being able to, I had no idea who was speaking, who wasn't speaking, and then Nick so masterfully emceed the event. And but it was that moment, that personal moment was the the most heartwarming joy and confirmation that it was like we're where exactly where we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, we weren't originally coming to Birmingham, and Judy at first had a lot of other responsibilities and was like, I'm not feeling called to it. And she's very intuitive, and there was just something about, it's like, yeah, we need to be there. We need to be there. And um,
I'm going to pretend that you were there just for me because,
absolutely, absolutely.
but I guarantee you that there was hundreds of other people that were impacted, and then they went
Well,
out and impacted the world, and it created a massive ripple.
this whole thing came from Judy's decision, and so the entire ultimate experience events, all of them came from a seed that she planted and
Yeah,
nurtured, right? So to acknowledge that is, it wouldn't even be a thing. We wouldn't have even been traveling had she not made the choices that she made in the
right,
world, right?
right.
I want to hit on something, we'll go a few more minutes here real quick, but I think this is essential, is the weightiness. The reason we chose the journey of grief for the 12 journeys is because the word grief comes from gravare, which means weightiness, heaviness.
Mm,
And for us, the journey of grief isn't just about grief. It's about all of the heavy emotions that weigh you down. And I don't want to go into that because we'll open up a whole new channel there, right?
Yeah, it could
But
be another hour, right?
yeah, at least.
Yeah.
But I do want to hit on how do you move forward, and I'm going to prime it a little bit here. Is we always say giants still take small steps. They're just bigger and more intentional. They choose deliberately what steps they're going to take, but they still take small steps. And when we look at Benoit Mandelbrot, who we named our company after, is that in his fractal math, it's small, simple equations repeated create the complexity of life. Scripturally, it might be that by small and simple things, great things come to pass. Is how, and maybe there's another view that we can add to this is when somebody's feeling the full weight of grief or any heavy emotion, how do they move forward toward a thriving space while that's present? Not saying get rid of it first, is like, how do you move forward while that's going on?
Oof. Yeah, that's deep. That's a very powerful question. That's a really good question. Well, indecision is still making a choice, right? Doing something with fear and continuing to move forward is called courage, right? Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is the presence of action with the presence of fear.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And I think in a similar way, when and I can only share from my experience, is when laden with grief, taking that step, like you mentioned, isn't the absence of grief. It isn't the resolve of grief before taking that step. And in the same way of in the face of fear, it's taking that step. There's an unknown, right?
Always.
There's a component of uncertainty. There's in the presence of grief or fear, or fill in the blank of whatever the emotion might be. I think we still have the ability to take that step. I think it's the awareness of, am I taking that step, or am I not taking this step? And the awareness can cut through the emotion, and there are different things around us that will help us to get to that awareness. Like I think about, and I'll just share, I'll go back to Jacob being in the ICU briefly. I had the awareness of, I was very attached to a very specific outcome. And I had the awareness of, that's all that mattered. And I had to wrestle to get to a place where intellectually I knew there wasn't anything I could do about it. Intellectually I knew, despite the amazing doctors and medical staff, they also didn't have the ability to change the outcome one way or another. And in that moment, I knew there was some wrestling that I needed to do to get to a place where it wasn't intellectual, but I needed to drop it down into my heart. And I think once it dropped down into it took me 3 days. It took me 3 days in the most horrific environment. And yet I was I made the decision. I'm going to wrestle through this, and I'm going to feel all of it, and I'm going to continue to wrestle with God, with myself, with my emotions, with all of the things. And then some miraculous thing occurred where this peace just washed over me, and I was able to surrender.
Mm.
Um,
That willingness to engage in the battle,
mhm,
right, is
mhm.
so key, because it's easy to be like the cattle and run away from the storm and prolong the
Exactly.
suffering.
Yeah.
But to wrestle with it is to really be with, and I've had a lot of this over the last few weeks here of like, did I do the right thing? Is this where I need to be right now? Tell me I'm wrong. Like, show me all the reasons. It's that wrestle. It's like this engaging with, this isn't just a reaction here. It's a wrestling, which
Mhm.
is so much more powerful. Is I'm going to deliberately get curious and deliberately sit with and deliberately look at everything and deliberately decide where I'm going to go from here. It's this
Mm.
deliberate action and
Mhm.
engagement with this thing that's
Mhm.
so challenging, right?
Right.
And sometimes it's just that one small step is all you can do around it. Is for some people, if all you can do is get out of bed, get out of bed. I remember
Right.
going through my divorce, and the only thing I felt like doing is nothing. But I decided I would make my bed, like that colonel talked about, or that Navy captain talked about,
Mhm.
is make your bed.
Right.
And that became one accomplishment. And when we talk about success, I want to create a definition here. Is failure is defined as a negative yield from your efforts. Success
Mm.
is defined as a positive yield from your efforts.
Mhm.
And the subjective yield is determined by you. So this isn't a financial success or a business success or anything like that. Financially, my business isn't a success according to social measurements, but there's people that are being impacted by it. There are books that are published because of it. These are all wins for
Mhm.
what we're doing, right?
Mhm. Different
So
metrics that are
different
being
metrics,
measured for success. Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So redefining your success, your metrics, can help you in stepping into something that creates some sort of success, whatever it looks like for you, not measured by social standards or cultural norms.
100%.
Yeah.
And for me, I redefine failure as simply lessons on the way to success.
Yeah, I
I
like
don't
that.
I don't I don't look at failure as um we're conditioned in school and in other environments that failure is bad.
Yeah.
That's a judgment. I don't look at failure that way. I look at failure as a powerful lesson in something that didn't work.
Yeah. And
And
you can forge from it and learn from it, right?
100%, if I didn't
Yep.
learn that lesson, I'd be stuck in that space.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And that's true in with emotion, that's true with our mental faculties, it's true spiritually, physically, all of it.
Yeah.
Um and I really love what you said about being curious and taking decisive action, deliberate decisive action. I
Hmm.
think those things are critical ingredients to really navigating through some of the darkest stuff that we can do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like you said, get out of bed. For me, I struggle with depression. So somebody might not know that.
Hmm.
And in the wake of this kind of loss, whew,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
could be that could be debilitating. And some days it feels that way.
Yeah.
And I'm aware enough to know that when I'm in that space, I don't judge myself. I say it's okay to not feel okay. And it's also not okay to stay there. And
Mm.
I get out, and if I can get outside and ride my bike, or if I can go paddle boarding, or move the body and get the blood flowing,
Yeah.
um, my mood will change.
I want
And
to hit this. Yeah.
This too shall pass.
It will pass. Lisa Feldman Barrett says that we feel depressed when we're not living up to our own ideals. We measure ourselves in the gap, and we feel anxious when we're not living up to the ideals of others. And so, but here's, I have anxiety, from childhood development, all these things. So I'm very aware of my anxious styles, of attachment and so on. But there's a thing called earned secure attachment, where you can be aware fully that that runs in your life and not let it make the decisions for you, right? Not react. And so that's where we develop these awarenesses, because if you don't have that awareness, then that reacts in your life and creates things. But you can know that you have that, and in a way it becomes a superpower for you, because you're very conscious not only of that, but what that tool does, anxiety, depression, all these things. And you make a deliberate decision and choice, not a reactive one. Right. And the other things that I'm just hearing in this is, these small steps into a direction that you choose into. I want to remember what I was going to share. Maybe it won't matter for this episode, but let me just see if I can find it for a minute. And if it's gone, it's gone, and it's perfect. I'm just absolutely blank. So it's like somebody says, "Tell me a time," and you're like, memory wiped. So I just, maybe we'll wrap up around this and just leave it here, is that when you step into the new world, it's going to be messy. There are going to be times where you feel like you just can't even get out of bed. It's okay to be not okay and still step, like be not okay and still step deliberately, right? That's powerful. What I hear most in what you're sharing here is the level of conscious forgiveness, not just a word you say, the non-judgment, the forgiveness of things that are already hard in your world, to release those, to not cause additional harm with those, and to intentionally step in the direction of the character you want to be in this world. I mean, that is the secret to creating success, however you define it. I was going to share this about the acorn tree, or the oak trees. It lays 10,000 acorns a year, and only one becomes a tree. 9,999 failures a year. Wow. Dyson, we talk about him. He had 5,000 vacuums that didn't suck before he found the one that did, right? And the impact of the ones that succeed are far greater than any loss you ever experienced. Right. And so failure, don't you think God could have engineered a one-shot wonder in a tree?
Of course.
If he's that powerful, don't you think he would have engineered that in, that we wouldn't have emotions like these? We wouldn't experience grief or anxiety or depression? You don't think he could have created it that way? There's a purpose for our failures. There's a purpose for these heavier emotions. And I think society taught us to hide them, to put them away, to put on your big boy pants, right? Right. And get up and dust off and quit being a wuss. No, there's a lesson in every one of these emotions: insecurity, anxiety, depression, grief. They're designed to help you to grow. Like 100%. Hugh always says, it's the shit that makes the plant grow. Right.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. I'll end with this. Last year we were at the gravesite, and in that space, I'm an absolute mess because of the finality of the situation and the exclamation point that is.
Oof, yeah.
We were filming, and we were done filming, so I thought, though my BTS producer, the behind the scenes producer, his camera was still rolling, and he asked me this question. He said, "How are you feeling?" Because he could see. He's like, what are you going through? Like, what? He wanted me to put words to what was occurring for me, and it was this strange sense of, I have this immense grief and sadness about losing Jacob. And I have this immense joy and gratitude in the same space
Wow.
at this same time.
Wow.
Gratitude for the time that we spent, gratitude for the lessons that he taught me, gratitude for the lessons that I've learned even in his passing.
Wow.
And it was this awareness that it hit me through tears, through the emotion of it. And it was this, I don't think I would have ever thought to put those different feelings at the same time in the same space.
Wow. Yeah. Two things can be true at once, right? As
Mm-hmm.
we wrap up here, let's go ahead and finalize here. Do you get the nudge to share anything or to ask a question or anything that you think the person on the other side of this screen needs to hear right now that maybe we didn't share throughout the show? And we haven't had a drop off in viewers through this whole thing. That's
Wow.
impressive to me. So they're watching, they're engaged here. But what would you say as your intuition hits you to those on the other side of the screen?
Well, there's one word that is really resounding in my heart at the moment, and I'm going to share it this way. This symbol is a Cupid with a AK-47. It's a logo for Cupid Soldiers. Cupid Soldiers was what Jacob referred to his fans and his followers as. Cupid being a symbol of love and soldiers being a symbol of warriors or fighters, and he wanted people to fight for love. And if we can remember to love ourselves, love those around us, and love people that we don't even know, instead of judging people that we don't know, this world would be a much, much different and better place. And that's what Jacob ultimately wanted. And I choose love. I choose love. I choose to show up with love for everyone, including myself.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think when we can love ourselves, we can get through those, like at the core of who we really are. We can get through the darkest stuff.
It's perfect. Ryan, final thoughts here?
I'll make it brief because I already shared a lot of how I feel
Oh,
towards
man,
Eric and
do your
Judy.
thing.
But
Yeah.
this hit me that Jacob's life, it ended sooner than obviously than any of us would want it. But his life became a service to others, and through you guys, your family, all those that have been involved in keeping Jacob's legacy alive. Um, his life has become a service to others, to help guide and impact them, and so one could look at that and go, well, that was the end of that, and you probably won't ever see all of the impact. You got to hear how and see my emotions, um, and how that affected me in my world. Um, uh, you won't probably see a lot of the impact that you've had, Eric. You and Judy have had a monumental, a giant impact, if you will. Um, Judy saw us very early on, and although we weren't and believed in us, and although we haven't been perfect, done some things that we had to grow through and shift through, and some moments that maybe we're not that proud of, and other moments where we're extremely proud because we got the ability, we got um, the opportunities to grow through it, and shift and adjust. And so I just wanted to thank you. I have a ton of gratitude for your service, for the things that you're doing in the world. And I see you, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate your friendship and your love, and hope to continue to step forward with you and help other people, and be a Cupid warrior there for other people. So thank you so much, Cupid soldier.
Yeah, absolutely. I would only want to rephrase one word that you said, and said believed. I would say believe, not past tense.
Or in Utah,
Thank
we
you.
say
Thank you for continue to
mountain,
believe. Mountain.
with
Yeah.
OT.
That's present. That's present. That's not past tense.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Dude, Eric, you are phenomenal. Your life is the sermon. What you and Judy are doing with the experience of Jacob is the sermon. I mean, it truly is. It's a demonstration to others of what's possible through the hardest things. And it's not, you're not out there preaching it, you're being it, you're living it, and it's reflecting out of you. And I love what Carl Jung talks about, is that our world outside of us is the shadow of everything inside of us. So it's a reflection of who we think we are. I talked with Stephen McGee yesterday, and just a real quick conversation, and I'm not going to share details, but he says that people become metaphors of the lessons we need to learn in our world. And so if there's a challenge, then it can be a metaphor. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's just simply there's a mirror that you get to look at in you of where do you need to grow. And you guys are a demonstration of that. I get to reflect back here as I sit with you of, man, where am I not doing what Erik's talking about? Where am I doing it? Acknowledging that there are areas that I am doing that and other areas where I'm not. It's like a calling up to realign with who I want to be in the world. And, there was a question that was posed is like, were you not being a giant? Right. The answer is there are times that, yeah, I'm not being the giant, but it has nothing to do with anybody outside of me. It's that I allow the parts of me that are playing small to run the show. And so the answer would be absolutely yes, I'm not being the giant. Right. And to acknowledge, like what you're doing here, gaps in my story of where I want to grow into what we're talking about here, where I'm not fully there. I'm not fully giant. I'm some in-betweener, like teenage kids, I'm a tweener, right? So I am just absolutely grateful for what you've shared. I do want to, share with everybody that's watching here is you do want to follow us on YouTube on these videos, because Facebook will delete these lives after 30 days. So this will be gone in the future on Facebook. But if you go to YouTube and subscribe, not only do you get notified, but you'll be able to access this content as long as YouTube's around, which should be quite a while. And they haven't changed their policies over there. So if you want to watch this video or share it, please do it from YouTube and join us and help us grow the brand and get more people to follow what we're doing here. Our goal is to help you be the giant that you're designed to be and to return to that. And Erik, you're part of that journey. Is this ripple will go out and you won't see where it goes, because we don't know who's on the other side of that screen that watches this, that's going to impact others. You just can't see it.
This is our longest show that we've ever done, and all the people are still watching. So thank you at home too.
Yeah. So everybody that's here, thank you for being a part of this. If you think of somebody this would serve deeply today, please share it. Go back through and watch it again for you, and tell us in the comments what impacted you most and where you're going to grow based on the journey of grief that we talked about today. So we appreciate you. We always love you. Thank you for being here and being a part of this this journey, and for your comments. Go make it a giant day, and we will see you in the next video.
Love you too.